This is your Chargers linebacker, Dan Henley, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Wolkenstein here with you from the LA Football Network. If this is your first time tuning in the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. We also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. We are live. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Let's have some fun over the next hour and a half. Dan, I am pleased to welcome everybody to the first episode of the 2026 NFL Draft. Let's go to work. I'm not ready to be done yet. Just kidding. Not really. Maybe I am. Just a little bit.
We'll never know. Welcome to Chargers Unleashed post 2025 NFL Draft. We got a lot in store for you today. We got some Chargers Unleashed hotline voicemails. We've got some folks talking NHL hockey already. We've got folks talking about Zion Johnson. We've got a lot of folks in here with comments and thoughts regarding this 2025 NFL Draft, what this offensive line could look like. But I think we wanted to kind of kick this off. And for folks in the chat, you know the drill. We love doing these. If you have any questions, if you have any topics, if you have any thoughts, feelings, whatever it is, put in the chat. You can always call the Chargers League hotline as well. We are here for you. We'll listen to you and anything you have for the next hour and 15-ish. 323-902-7586 is the number to the hotline. Got a couple in store already, but if you have any, it's not too late. Go ahead and put them in there. What are we drinking, ladies and gentlemen? I have a pickleball cup full of water, H2O, baby. What are you drinking, Jake?
I'm empty. So
do you want me to blabber on for a bit and you can go get something to drink?
No, I can exclude myself from this conversation. That's fine.
Okay. In the chat, let me know what you are drinking. And also, last question before we kind of get started. Folks in the chat, who was your favorite, not the best, who was your favorite NFL draft selection by your Los Angeles Chargers? Because I think Jake and I have some thoughts on this and what that means for the rest of this team moving forward. But Jake, I have to ask you, happy hump day? Question mark? How are you feeling?
I think I'm fully recovered off of draft / 40th birthday weekend. So
good.
I think we're back on track.
Good. Well, Jake, we could just honestly start this thing right off with Dark Samus has a $5 donation already with a super chat. So let's get to this one. He says $5. Thank you so much, by the way. Zion is arguably the most athletic and strongest offensive guard in the NFL and is probably the strongest than any interior defensive line. He rarely loses one-on-one if he knows who to block. I mean, that's a very, very, very large asterisk in the if column.
Yes.
But we'll get into it later. But Jake, do you feel this Chargers has the starting five already on the roster for the offensive line?
No, I will not discount a possible after the draft move.
Spicy.
I do feel strongly, as I have said previously, I understand what Joe Ortiz has come out and said publicly about Zion Johnson possibly moving to center and that he's been working at center. I just don't buy it at the end of the day. Dan and I were on here talking about right before the draft, actually, and in our last mock draft, we had them taking Jake Majors, and Dan presented a question to me. He said, well, do you think that Jake Majors as a possible 6th-round rookie would overtake Zion Johnson? I was like, well, he's played a lot more center than Zion Johnson has. And I think that that's the exact same type of mentality that's going to win out during training camp. So I think your starting five is going to be Rashawn Slater, Zion Johnson, Andre James, Mekhi Becton, and Joe Alt. And Bradley Bozeman was obviously brought in for a backup, and you have some other depth pieces behind it. But if it stays the way it is roster-wise right now, that should be your starting five.
Yeah, and we'll get into that and the ramifications here in a bit. Let's get to some of the answers. A lot of folks are talking Omarion Hampton, which I don't blame them.
Rightfully so.
Gabriel Caldera says Omarion Hampton is our favorite pick. Alfredo Hampton, we will run it like 06. Woo-hoo. Matthew Dahl going with the favorite safety out of Clemson.
Mickens.
Which a lot of people are saying he could be a starter. Though folks with the NFL Stock Exchange folks gave the Chargers I think Connor Rogers gave them an A. No, excuse me. Yeah, Connor Rogers gave him an A. Trevor Sikkema gave him a B+. I think you and I both agreed on a B+ rating. Close to an A-. Close. KW says Caldwell. I think we're going to be talking about this pick as a steal a few hours from now. A few
years from
now. Maybe
hours from now.
If you have not done so already, please hit that like and subscribe. Helps us out a ton. We're on our way to 10K. The man formerly known as comma, now known as period. My favorite has to be Trey Harris. Reminds me of T. Higgins coming out of Clemson. A lot of similarities. Lawrence was a much better quarterback than Dart, obviously. So, Jake, I think kind of to set off the stage here, you and I kind of talked about for a long time, and Chargers fans, I think generally have talked about this for a long time, how it felt a lot like this Chargers team, and specifically Justin Herbert, was kind of like behind the 8 ball a little bit and not really given the full compliment and unable to realize his potential. And you hear the term like, let Justin Herbert cook, right? For good reasons. Jim Harbaugh, Joe Ortiz came in year 1, revamped a whole lot of stuff. Could they revamp everything? Clearly not. Were they trying to give Justin Herbert some weapons, either on offense or defense, to be able to start maximizing his potential? Maybe. But there is no argument that this year, in 2025, through the offseason free agency, as well as the NFL draft, and again, we're not done, Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh understood the assignment. And we'll get into all of the names here for a sec, but Justin Herbert's got a bevy of weapons now. And for all of us collectively who have been begging, pleading, praying for weapons for Justin and company, damn it, they brought them. Tight ends, running backs, receivers, offensive linemen. Hell, backup quarterbacks if you want to go that far. This Chargers team added so much talent, an infusion of playmaking abilities that I don't know what to do with my hands right now. Like, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the visuals that we have prepared for today, and I'm like, holy shit, dude. Like, this is an unrecognizable offense, it feels.
What a difference a year makes, right? I think that the Chargers front office understood the assignment. Again, we've been talking about this so much that it is nice to have a transparent front office that's on the same page with the coaching staff. Because if you remember Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh's comments shortly after the season ended, they said that they had failed Justin Herbert. They did not give him everything that he needed. And a lot of that was due to reasons that were left over from the previous regime, available cap space, what have you. They did the best they could in the 2024 NFL draft. Fast forward a year later, a lot of the takeaways that you get from that season is the running game for Greg Roman did not execute the way that it should, even with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, and at times at times with J.K. Dobbins producing the way he did and looking good while doing it. Your tight ends was a huge gap. Your wide receivers outside of Ladd McConkey was a huge, huge letdown for Justin Herbert. And they went into this draft understanding what it is that they needed to do. And even with a BPA mentality, Dan, I didn't feel like they reached for Trey Harris, Omarion Hampton, or Orande Gadsden. I felt that they got those in terms of good value in playing the BPA board the way they did. I felt that they did those moves strategically, as Dan liked to call it, strategic missile strikes, and they came away with a very, very impressive draft haul and immediate upgrades for Justin Herbert at running back, wide receiver, and tight end. Not too bad over the course of a 3-day period.
Not too bad. Aether is here, Jake. $5 donation from Aether. This is all caps. I'm not going to yell it, but I'm going to do it in my calm, soothing Morgan Freeman voice.
Oh, you're going to go that low with it?
No,
okay.
I can't do Morgan Freeman. Are you ready for Herbert's MVP season? It's coming. The firepower. Love my GM. He is not wasting time. Let's go. We're about to hear a lot from Athir, I feel like, starting this offseason.
P.S. That was much more soothing. Please do that from now on. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. F the grade, says Sean Bergen. Let's play out. Yeah, I think I'm kind of with you at this point. I hope they let the FCC know, says Real UFOs by Keith Chapman, that Herbert is going to be bombs away. Yeah, I think so. That's kind of a good transition, Jake. Let's talk about that added firepower that Justin Herbert now has at his disposal for this Chargers 2025 season. Last year, lot to talk. We all remember it. This offense, especially receiving core, was ranked close to, if not dead last, by many experts. It was based, and again, this was before the season started. It was like, we're basing all of this on a possible rookie and Quentin Johnston and DJ Chark and Josh Palmer and Darius Davis, maybe Semi Fehoko, Brendan Rice, Jalen Reagor, and a bunch of other dudes in there. Turns out, Lad's that dude. Quentin had a better 2024 season. We'll give him that. But as it turned out, Will Dissly wasn't going to be saving us come playoff time when it mattered most. Quentin Johnston wasn't saving him, wasn't getting open when it mattered most. Lad, even with 200 yards in the playoffs, wasn't enough. Offensive line got bludgeoned between Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, unhealthy and or ineffective for a multitude of reasons. Justin Herbert in that playoff game wasn't himself. And again, many reasons for that, but in short, had a bad game. And then you heard GM, head coach, talk about the disservice they did to Justin Herbert. Now you fast forward. You bring in Tyler Conklin as a tight end, pass catcher, 4 straight years of 500 yards or more and 50 catches, I believe. You bring in Mike Williams. I think we've heard of him. 2 years removed now. They kept the lad himself, along with Quentin Johnston. They bring in a running back, Najee Harris, gives them availability, accountability, and there every day, so to speak. Then they go into the draft. They bring in tight end Orande Gadsden, who, again, my diamond in the rough. Omarion Hampton, the missile himself, the guy who is arguably the most well-rounded running back in the NFL draft. They're bringing Trey Harris, who was a fan favorite at 55 at Ole Miss, who was tailor-built for the X position. KeAndre Lambert-Smith, they bring in as a receiver who's a burner with 4.3 speed. And all of a sudden, this offense is now unrecognizable. And that's not even counting the offensive line additions with Mekhi Becton, Andre James, etc. So I'll start this off, and I'll ask folks in the chat, I'll ask you this, Jake. From a firepower, from an offensive weapons perspective, purely, is this enough? If you want to call it a Super Bowl contending firepower, whatever you want to call it, is this now enough? Have they done their job?
It's better. I'm not going to go as far as to say that the job's done because you're going to have to reload again next year at certain positions at some point. But for a single offseason to combine free agency and the NFL draft, especially when you lay it out like this, rather than just going through the names, this is head and shoulders better than what the Chargers had for Justin Herbert last year. No question. Clears the bar by a New York mile. I mean, what you have done to add not only depth, but key pieces in the draft with high picks in the first 2 rounds. This is fantastic for Justin Herbert. This is a hell of a job in one offseason to remake your offensive arsenal from the running back, tight end, and wide receiver group. Sometimes you could only do 1 or 2 at best. The Chargers hit it on all 3. That's damn impressive.
They did. Mac 88. Competitors welcome. Keep the grades. Sure. Real UFO says, I have a virtual $1 that says LA Chargers win AFC West. We need to beat Kansas City. Wow. Very bold with your dollar.
It's a virtual dollar, Dan. It's a virtual dollar.
Gabriel Caldera says, on paper, the offense appears to have more physical players rather than finesse. They plugged last year's offense with one-year free agents to make the offense more physical. Good point. I think a lot of, and that's on both sides of the ball. I think this Chargers team for years has been known as a finesse team. Clearly, it didn't work due to either injury or just unable to out physical opponents. And they're kind of going the brute force route this year. Look no further than the running back group that we have right now, including possibly J.K. Dobbins, which is wild. Yeah. It feels like this Chargers team is going for size, for strength, for durability, and for smartness. Smartness. Wow. Ironic. I say smartness.
Good
word.
word.
Smarts. That's hilarious.
They're just words, Dan. They don't control us.
That's true. Thank you. I like that. I'm going to put that on a bumper sticker. They're just words. They don't control us. Jorge, live on a Wednesday? Okay, let's go. All right, Jake, let's get to some of these voicemails real quick. We got 2 of them here. Chargers on these hotline after the draft. Was pretty fun. Let's hear this first one that we have to say from Matthew on the Chargers Unleashed hotline.
So, draft is ending, and I think we had a good, solid draft picks. I would say awesome. I would say great, but I think it was pretty cool to see. You know, we got Omarion, Hampton, and we got some weapons. So, thanks for George Tease for getting Justin Herbert some weapons. And it was a cool experience to see the draft, you know, watching it. And, yeah, so can't wait for this season. My only question to you guys is there more pressure? Is there going to be pressure on Herbert? Because, I mean, this is his sixth year, and he has no playoff records. So I'm wondering, is it time for him, to make the big step? Because I know Jim Harbaugh and George, he's getting weapons, so no more excuses for him. I believe he needs to get this playoff win on his record, and hopefully he gets it this year. So really excited for this year. Thank you guys. Bolts up.
I'll say that the pressure's been on Justin Herbert for a couple years. I don't think this is one of those scenarios where it's like, okay, now the pressure's on Justin Herbert. The pressure has essentially been on him since the Jacksonville loss. What are you going to do to solidify yourself as a top QB in order to get a W in that playoff column? And we're still waiting for that. So I think that pressure has been on Justin Herbert for a little while now. I don't think anything's changed now as it relates to what does Justin Herbert have now as opposed to a lot of the other teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, the Denver Broncos, a lot of the other teams in the AFC in general. It looks a lot better now. So, yes, I don't think that anybody is giving Justin Herbert any excuses with this roster. More importantly, it's the man behind the wheel, and that's Jim Harbaugh. And I think that is what is really going to carry this year when you insert the type of players that you have. I think you have a great mentality. This is Greg Roman 2.0 for how they're going to install and unleash this offense. So I'm really excited to see it because I don't think is it going to be ground and pound, try to kick your ass? Yes. But there are weapons now that the Chargers have accumulated to say, we don't have to just be a 5-yard team. We can take some shots. We can get it downfield. We can get guys in open space. God willing, we can have more than Ladd McConkey beat defenders in man coverage. So, yes, you got some variance to this offense, which is great.
I do think Justin Herbert has, I don't want to say added pressure because the pressure's on, to your point, every season. But the larger point, and this is what you and I kind of talked about at the end of the season when it ended the way it did. If the Chargers did what we wanted them to do, and that was get Justin some weapons, there are no more excuses. He's had the weapons excuse. He's had the injury excuse. He's had the defense excuse. He's had the offensive line excuse. And all of them have been valid. Like, you can't discredit them. Could he have risen above and nonetheless? Maybe. But every one of those were valid. Like, remember, like, the defense was historically bad prior to last year. And after that, like, special teams randomly was terrible. Like, it was amazing the things that cost this team victories. Chargers scoring like 30-plus points per game and still lose because defense gives up more. And then they go out and get Joe Alt, go get Ladd McConkey. Year one in this Joe Ortiz round, they're bringing J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, bunch of offensive line free agents. But again, with no money, they were left with a ton of small deals. And they went from a 5-win team to an 11-win team. Now, the 5-win asterisk, Justin Herbert didn't play the last part of the season, but still, like, that team was not playing well. The excuses feel to be gone. Now, sure, can a whole bunch of dudes get injured? Possibly, like any season. But right now, like, this Chargers team is ready to win. Are there still weak links? We'll talk about that. I think there are people in the chat talking about that. Sure. But they're not nearly as many, and they are not nearly as glaring as there have been in years past. And I say years past, like not just last year. And we all want to give Joe Ortiz and company credit. Like, the credit that I give them is how quickly they have provided depth to this Chargers team. Because we all know it's not about the star-studded talent, quote unquote, which some might argue who that star-studded talent even was. But it's about the depth when things go differently, go wrong, go sideways, go against the grain. And bold moves have happened, right? Joey Bosa, no longer a Charger. Keenan Allen, no longer a Charger. Michael Davis, Austin Eckler. There's a bunch of dudes that are no longer here that we forget about real quick. And this Chargers team with a ton of money went the route of value. And now, zoom out. Look at the depth. And we can go position group by position group if we want. But like, even just the running backs, we mentioned it before. Like, people are talking about J.K. Dobbins, which was a random thing that I did not know about until today. Possibly coming back for $2 million if another team doesn't pick him up for more than that. And if they do, then we get a comp pick. We being the Chargers. Omarion, Hampton, Najee Harris, J.K. Dobbins, and then, oh, by the way, you got Rocket Sanders and Kamani Vidal, who, if you haven't seen Rocket Sanders, go. Like, he was one of my favorite watches in the NFL draft. That's a hell of a turnaround in one season. A hell of a turnaround. So what do you make of the, I guess, is like, I firmly believe it is enough. All the things that Chargers fans have been asking for have been brought in.
Just go back 10 seconds to when you were talking about just the running back room alone. Who the hell is getting cut? And I'm not trying to be morbid on that, but I mean, like, really? Like, that is a nasty running back room, especially if J.K. Dobbins ends up returning to this team, which I was a huge proponent of. I thought he earned that second contract. And here comes Joe Ortiz with a win-win scenario, very savvy and smart move, because nobody had picked J.K. Dobbins up off the free agent market. So he signs him to this very interesting tender that if he's not signed by a certain date, that he will be with the team. Or if another team wants to sign him, that the Chargers are going to get a comp pick in return. Now, not to say that the J.K. Dobbins wouldn't help, but Jesus. It's the running back room's already loaded, and you want to insert J.K. Dobbins into that fold? That's just one position group that we're talking about here. And look what you did through a number of different moves. Crazy.
It was. Cameron says, we've never been more equipped as a team and organization to compete in the division in the AFC in the Justin Herbert era. This is Herbert's year to make people respect him in the Chargers. But that first sentence, we have never been more equipped as a team and organization to compete in the division and the AFC in the Justin Herbert era. So we can talk about draft grades all we want. We can talk about reaches and value, all that stuff. Bar none, this is by far the deepest this Chargers team has ever been in the last decade, ever. I don't think that's even a remote question.
It's crazy when a new organization comes in and takes the helm in the right way, right?
Yeah. Sweet Jump says Herb needs to level up to take this division. The time is now. Agreed. Brady asks, is Dobbins coming back? Jake, do you think Dobbins ends up on the team?
I think there's a path for him. I do. I think he deserves it. Honestly, I think there is honestly a path back for him, especially under this tender now. That if you were to tell me that going into this next year that J.K. Dobbins all of a sudden is your RB 2/3, holy shit! From what we saw from him last year, coming back off the injury, looked pretty damn good to me. And now you've essentially reloaded and upgraded that running back stable. Shit, I don't care. Go ahead.
The guiltiest charge, guys, asks Dan, said KeAndre isn't going anywhere. They said the organization loves him. If we are under the assumption of best player plays, then shouldn't that leave the door open to trade Quentin?
I said that we talked about this after the draft was done. KeAndre Lambert-Smith. I kind of felt like this was like a warning shot. I am totally with GAC that I do not believe that Quentin Johnston is leaving the team this year. I think he remains on the team for this upcoming season. However, this is now going into the next phase of Quentin Johnston that we still just don't know. Was it better last year? Yes.
Hold up. Action Dan 65. Jake, please hold that thought. You screwing it in there? Lock and key?
Yeah, it's there. Go ahead.
$100 donation by Action Dan 65. Wow. My brother, Action Dan 65. Jake's still holding the thought. Thank you. Thank you. Seriously, that means a ton to us. We love doing this, and we love you guys for all of your support. And holy shit, dude. $100? You do not have to. That's incredible. He says, promises made, promises kept. I didn't get my IDL, but I'm very happy with Hampton in the first round. Another great draft by Chef Ortiz. You guys are awesome. Keep up the great work. Chargers Unleashed gets $100. Chargers fans get Omarion Hampton. Action Dan does not get an interior defensive line.
Well, the one he wanted. He got an interior defensive lineman. He just didn't get the one he wanted, which is okay.
I think he was meaning at 22.
Well, there were 4 interior defensive linemen that were taken right before the Chargers. One specifically that Dan and I were completely in love with, Derek Harmon, went right before the Chargers pick at 22. 5 went in total in the first round. I think if you went another interior defensive lineman there with who was off the board, I think it almost might have been considered a reach at that point. Chargers played the BPA game, came back around when they needed it, and still added a interior defensive lineman that's going to bring something different than what you already have with this current stable. So, stoked for it. Now, going back to my original thought, talking about Quentin Johnston. Yes, I think he remains on this team because there's still question marks up in the air as it relates to Quentin Johnston. Year 2 was better than year 1. It wasn't necessarily that high of a bar to clear, all things considered, what his rookie season was. But you still have to, I think he is now penciled in for kind of as a niche wide receiver. That you've gotten an idea of what he is, what he isn't. And once again, yes, the coaching staff has extreme confidence in him that they can get the best out of him. Now, is that as a downfield threat playing the X receiver? No. I think we got an idea that that's not it last year. Hence the Trey Harris move. Hence going out and getting Mike Williams. So you have to put Quentin Johnston in a specific position to succeed. I think after getting 1 year under this new coaching staff for them to see what they have, I think they're going to see it through for this next season and maybe make a decision after that. And again, I think the KeAndre Lambert-Smith pick is insurance, essentially, should things pan out or not pan out after this year.
Interesting. This is tough. I don't necessarily think Quentin Johnston is safe, but I feel that it would be hard for them to just cut him. Maybe he gets traded, and then you think about optics, right? Giving him, a fresh new start. Chargers get some compensation back for him. The wide receiver room, is completely revamped. There's a path there. I know Quentin Johnson wasn't their guy. We've heard Joe Ortiz talk about he was his guy when he was talking with the Ravens too. Quentin Johnson did improve this past season. There is no way around it. Is he improved enough to be worth the first round pick? Probably not, arguably. But again, that's what we're going into year 3 with. So if you continue down this same trajectory, an improved Quentin Johnson year 3, same improvement as from year 1 to year 2, it's pretty darn good. That's a good Z receiver. Now, you look at kind of the macro of it. A lot of people talk about the basketball team, right? And you see this, I'm not even going to say starting 5, starting 6, whatever, but you've got Ladd and you've got Trey Harris, which I think those are your 2 long-term for sure. I'm not sure between Mike Williams and Trey Harris, which one of those is going to quote unquote start. I don't know. You've got Darius Davis, who is going to be your returner. I think he's 100% safe. Don't worry about him. KeAndre Lambert-Smith is definitely a wild card for sure. And he went from a Penn State team where it didn't look too great to an Auburn team where the quarterback didn't look too great. And he still almost put in 1K. And some of those highlight reels are pretty impressive. Now, if we go down the things that matter most to this Chargers team, right? We talk about productivity. We talk about availability and dependability. Trey Harris, check. Ladd McConkey, check. Everything else is a question mark. Mike Williams, when healthy, asterisk, right? Quinn Johnson, all the athletic traits in the world. KeAndre Lambert, we've heard excuses. Darius Davis, he hasn't really been utilized that much, at least on the offense, as much as we would like. Maybe sometimes last year by necessity. But regardless, you're feeling so much better about this Chargers team and this wide receiving core this year than a year ago. Literally 3 of these dudes who weren't even here.
Oh, I thought you were continuing your sentence where you just
I was letting you pick up
dramatic pause.
Yeah, that was it.
Oh, okay. I have nothing to add.
Cool.
I thought everything you said made perfect sense. That was just a weird spot for you to stop talking.
Okay, your turn.
Dan, hit me up with the tight ends here.
Hit me up with the tight
ends. Hit me up with the tight ends here.
Okay, let's bring in the tight end discussion. This is a fun one. And same path.
Not bad. Not bad. You knew that you couldn't go back into this year with the tight end group that you had last year. You knew that you couldn't go back in to, even though at times Will Dissly was able to, pick up some of the slack for the receiving aspects of the tight end position and did it admirably at times, but he is not the answer. So you go out and you get Tyler Conklin in free agency on a 1-year deal for a guy who has terrific hands, one of the better pass catching tight ends that was available. Yes, I know, not part of the big tight ends of the Evan Ingrams or ones that we wanted to trade for, but still for the ones that were available, fits the bill for a good receiving tight end. And then you pair that up with getting one of Dan's favorites the entire draft in terms of a receiving weapon, a receiver turned tight end himself, in Orande Gadsden. You trade up for him in the 5th to go get him. And all of a sudden you look at it like this and you say to yourself, Tyler Conklin and Orande Gadsden do not need to worry about blocking. Will Dissly and Tucker Fisk are going to handle that bill. And may not come by one player, but by 2, that all of a sudden Justin Herbert has some legitimate receiving threats at the tight end position.
Dan Siegel says, I heard that Orande, if not for his injury, would have been a tight end 1 last year if he was in the draft. Fun fact of the day. I mean,
he had this season, it was a very nice comeback after essentially losing 2023 to the injury.
I don't know about tight end 1, but yeah, he would have been a much higher draft selection than 5th round trade up. Yes, I would go there. Brad says, we got way better at tight end, and I'm a fan of Gadsden. I'm glad everyone's coming around to my boy Orande.
Talk about Orande a little bit, Dan.
I feel like I've talked about Orande for so long, but sure.
It's okay. You could just take another awkward pause and just end your sentence.
Okay, I'll say this. No.
Perfect example of it.
No, Syracuse Orange, though. Orande Gadsden, so fun. This kid's got like a 10-point something A dot. I think it was 3 dropped and 100 and something targets last year. Converted wide receiver to tight end. Smooth, man. Like, again, we're talking about like the Fergusons of this year's draft class. We're talking about the Elijah Arroyos of this class. We're talking about, the top 2, clearly. Colston Loveland, very, very top of it. But like, these are all like pure pass catchers. And that has been what the Chargers team has lacked substantially. Like, they guys haven't had a lot of athletes like this. If you want him to block, put in Will Dissly. If you want him to block, put in Tucker Fisk. 11 personnel is going to be freaking sick. 12 personnel, it's going to be sick. This guy is just a smooth criminal, dude. Like, go watch some of his routes. Go watch some of his hands. Look at some of the catches he's had. He's got wiggle. He's got the size, 6'6", 240, I believe. Jorge says, we got awkward Dan.
Ran the second fastest 40 out of this entire tight end group just behind Ferguson. 5 games for over 100 yards this year. Had one of the best catches of any player against Boston College. And just like the Trey Harris move for the Chargers, you look at the contested catch rate in terms of these selections.
17 for 28, I believe.
This was strategic by the Chargers in doing this. Not only you getting production, but in terms of guys who can catch in traffic, Trey Harris and Orande Gadsden can do that for you.
Who does Gadsden remind you of, Jake? I've talked about this a ton, but who does he remind you of?
When you were on with the director, people were throwing out Darren Waller comparisons. I'm with you. I don't necessarily see Darren Waller just because I see just a much more slender build in Orande Gadsden. I think it's more kind of like a souped up Stone Smart if we're just talking measurables. Maybe a little bit more in kind of the Evan Ingram build a little bit. Again, not the biggest, still a little bit slender for the position in general. Not a blocker. But if we're just talking measurables, that's kind of what I see. Now, trait-wise, that's different. Dan, who do you see?
There's been a few. Like Terrence Ferguson, I thought I've always said, like, he reminds me a lot of him coming out of the draft from Oregon. But I think he's more athletic. I think he has better hands as well. I like your comp. I like your pick. I've seen people talk about Isaiah Likely from the Ravens. Like, that's another one I've seen floating around. But he's kind of his own. He kind of has a slower, like a Drake London archetype.
Yeah, he's not the most explosive guy.
Yeah. I mean, again, we're talking about tight end versus receiver, but like he has that like Kyle Pitts archetype. I'm not saying he's first round Kyle Pitts, but like you look at the way that he plays, that's what he reminds me of. And again, we're talking value. You saw how hyped this Chargers front office was when they were able to trade up and get him too. They wanted him a lot earlier than they got him. And they were able to hold on tight, if you will, and able to come back with KeAndre Lambert-Smith and Orande Gadsden.
Remember, right after KeAndre Lambert-Smith was taken, 2-3 picks after this, Mitchell Evans was selected. And I think at that point in time, the Chargers realized, like, oh, shit, like, we can't afford to wait any longer. And next thing you know, Chargers are back up on the draft ticker, 3 picks, and going, oh, shit, what happened? They gave away 2 of their 6-round picks, and they're on the clock, and Gadsden ends up being the selection.
James Wagner says Justin will dominate the red zone. So I ask you again, Chargers fans. Now, who was your favorite Chargers selection on offense specifically?
And I don't necessarily disagree with James saying this because I understand why he wants to say this, but I feel like we've been saying that phrase for so long now. And then when you extrapolate this and you look at what's happened over just take a 2-year period under this regime, there's no way that this cannot happen. There's just no way. We thought that they were going to dominate when they had, two big receiving threats at tight end. Didn't end up getting executed that way. You thought you were going to with the running scheme that you had at that point in time. Nope, didn't end up happening. You thought you were still going to dominate when you had Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Nope, didn't end up happening that way.
Jared Cook.
Yes. Gerald Everett. There's no way that it doesn't happen now.
You better take that back. Jeremy,
I've been saying it for years, and I had agreed with that whole sentiment in terms of how the offense was supposed to be executed by said offensive coordinators. It just didn't happen that way.
Jeremy says Telesco would have messed this up.
There's a lot he would have messed up. Let's just be honest. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
If the pick was 22, I feel like it would have been a reach for an interior defensive lineman. If the trade back, well, who am I kidding? The trade back to the Philadelphia Eagles would never have happened. It wouldn't have even been a conversation. He wouldn't have been on the phone. There would have been another 3rd round pick that we would have been holding our breaths for. We know how this plays out.
Yep. I wanted the Chargers to go all in on offense, and they delivered. Now, again, we say all in on offense, but it's not like they just ignore defense either. Now, they prioritize offense in some times. They prioritize defense at times. But you look at both the offseason free agency and the draft, they were pretty balanced. And we haven't even really talked much about the corners, the safeties, the defensive tackle, the edge, anyone that was selected by the Chargers in the NFL draft. And I know it's because people are pumped about this Chargers offense, and we are as well. But this Chargers defense, would you say it's better than last year right now? And I think, before you answer that, again, we're talking about top scoring defense in the NFL, lost a bunch of dudes. Poona Ford's not here. Christian Fulton's not here. Asante Samuel Jr. is not here. They've lost some of their special teams juice on linebackers. Do you think that they're better right now? They add Junior Colson, Jamaree Caldwell. I'm adding Junior Colson because it's basically, like you said, a redshirt year. Is the defense better?
Let's go through this for a second. For the Poona Ford pick, which again, still disagree that I wish that the Chargers would have brought him back. You basically had to replace him by a committee. So you go out and you get Deshaun Hand. You draft Jamaree Caldwell in the 3rd round. And you need to find some type of defensive package that is going to supplant that. Obviously, bringing Tyler Tart once Poona Ford had left, that was huge. That was a big, big priority that you needed to do. And going out and getting Kyle Kennard, that's going to supplant the loss of Morgan Fox and Joey Bosa. And again, I loved the Kennard pick in the 4th round. PFF actually thought it was a great value move considering where the Chargers took him. They had him as 81 on their overall big board. I think that this has potential to be an heir apparent to Khalil Mack and who your starting pairing might be opposite of Thule after this season. Bud Dupree's only here for one more year. Khalil Mack's only here for one more year. If it doesn't work out, holy shit, is edge big time for the draft next year. So you're in a really good position to where Kyle Kennard, I think for how he's going to be deployed this season, I think he's going to be your 3rd down specialist and just say, hey, go get after the quarterback. He's got a great arsenal of pass rushing moves. His speed to power is great. Few things he needs to clean up in terms of his technique and getting lower, but in general, he's your speed rusher on third down. And I think that's great to have for a year for Khalil Mack to mentor him, be part of this edge group. And there's a lot of juice all of a sudden that you have at this edge room.
All right, let's flip the script for a bit. We'll stay on defense for a while. Who is your favorite Chargers NFL draft selection on the defensive side? Put it in the chat. Let's hear your thoughts. Jake's mentioned Jamaree Caldwell from Oregon, mentioned Kennard. They go safety, they go corner, Trikweze. Can you say it?
Nope. That's why I let you say it.
RJ Mickens. And then, I mean, look at some people are talking in the chat about the depth of this secondary. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to lean towards next. James says the secondary is quite deep and potent. I'm going to read you this Chargers secondary right now. So we talk about Trikweze Bridges. We talk about RJ Mickens that they drafted. Then in the offseason, they brought in Benjamin St. Juste. They bring in Dante Jackson. Add to that Tarheeb Still and Cam Hart, breakout rookies last year. They still got Dean Leonard, and they got Jazir Taylor. There's some others, depth below that, but is that potent enough?
The way that Steve Klingscale wants his secondary unit to work? Absolutely. You look at some of the moves that the Chargers did in terms of free agency in the draft. This was all about fitting in Jesse Minter's scheme. Who thrives in zone? Your two free agent acquisitions do that. RJ Mickens does that and is a versatile chess piece that still allows Derwin to do what he does best in playing closer to the line. I would pose the question back to you, Dan, because I remember when this draft was done a year ago.
Me too.
You were extremely skeptical of what that cornerback room was like because you were saying, are we going to really trust 2 fifth-round corners to lead the way? I don't know about Christian Fulton. I think we need to reinforce this cornerback room. And here we are 1 year later, and it feels exactly the opposite. I think Elijah Molden had a little bit to do with that.
I didn't even mention Elijah Moulton when you were talking about the corners, which he's kind of a corner safety hybrid. James Wagner says, love the safety. A lot of people talk about the safety. Brad Spicoli, I like the safety. Uber Goober Jock. I like that. RJ Mickens getting a lot of love. Yeah, man. For folks who haven't seen it, go on X. Check out what his safeties coach said about him. Like they said he's arguably the smartest guy in the room. He's going to outwork everybody. And you got a lot of folks saying he's a starting safety. So this feels like a long-term answer for this Chargers team. Post Alohi Gilman, possibly. It's depth. Special teams juice for sure. But yes, I think this Chargers secondary is definitely deeper than it was in years past. And if we're going to buy the Steve Klingscale, Jesse Minter effect, then
Which
yeah,
you should.
I'm good with it. I'm good with it. Jeremy L says this secondary is fire. Question: do you feel that we have a shot at Jalen Ramsey? Asks Brad Spicoli.
No, not now. And I feel like if the Rams are going to unload him, they would have done it during the draft. So, who knows? Things could change between now and the start of the season. And we've heard that we hear this talk every now and again in terms of teams that are open to trade. It doesn't end up playing out. But I would say now, just given where the Chargers are at and given the moves that they've made, both free agency and draft alike, I'd honestly be shocked if they were able to pull that off. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying no because I reject the move. I understand what that move would do. But I'd put it as a very low probability.
I would too. Chargers Unleash hotline 323.
And I'm sorry, I meant Dolphins, not Rams. Excuse me.
That's okay. 323-902-7586 is your number for the Chargers Unleashed hotline. We'll get to our second voicemail here. Real UFO by Keith Chapman says, they need to release Derwin James, letting him go after the damn quarterback. When I first read this, I was like, why would you release Derwin James?
Change the wording just a little bit there.
They did a little bit last year. And I think they will do more this year. Yes. Derwin James is a heat-seeking missile when it comes to rushing the quarterback. Hell, and TFLs. The dude is an absolute beast. Brad says, it's okay. I'm high too, Jake.
I've been getting like the high comments this entire show. I'm like, look, if you want me to come on, but if you want me to come on here, like, hey, I'm fine. I got stogies over here in the bar.
Yeah, what happened to those?
You know,
we know.
Day two got there were more libations than brain cells on day two, and that's what happened.
Oh, if this phone could just be turned around and show Chargers fans some of them.
Lock and key, Wolkenstein. Lock and
You're right.
key.
You're right. I'm keeping that close to the vest.
Yeah.
Chargers Unleashed hotline. Let's hear our next voicemail from friend of the show.
Hey, Bob from Boston, boys. So, Jake, last time I called in, you were making fun of my accent.
Making fun? That is not true.
Let's clear this up right now. I do not have an accent. You guys have an accent.
Okay.
Now, Jake, you better be careful. You would be much happier if I kept the howitzers trained on Dan than on you. Don't get me started on that Southern Cal, touchy-feely, slate gray paint color in your broadcast room. What do you call that? Meditation gray, fusion gray, eternity gray.
Pause. It's called black bean soup. Okay? Continue.
Wise up, Jake. By my count now, you have said that 134 college players are a great fit for the Chargers. You covered all your bets at the roulette table. Hey, I picked all the all-pros. Jake, the best thing you can do is lay low and let Dan take all the shots from here on out.
There's a lot of slanderous comments in this voicemail here. Number one, I have never once made fun of Bob from Boston's accent. As a matter of fact, I love the Bostonian accent. It makes every story that Bob from Boston has said when coming on this show that much better. So some things need to be checked, but I get what he's saying. Totally fine. Totally fine. Dan, he wants you to take
free pass for you. Okay, the draft.
Free pass.
Finally, I get off scot-free in this one.
Someone's telling me that someone paid someone under the table to come on here and say some slanderous comments.
Well, what was it? We got $100 already today. So.
Yeah, did you take that? And did you give him the money already so he can come out here and say this?
How this is gonna work out. I believe in Ortiz, Jake. I'm going to help you learn how to pronounce his name. Think of a lady of the night who is a tease. Say it with me, Jake. Ortiz. Okay? This genius knows how to make picks. Man.
God. Man. I'm trying to think. Like we should have like a segment on here. Like, learn the alphabet with Bob from Boston. And it's like, this is how we're going to pronounce Chargers players' names. Lady of the Night and Tease. Ortiz.
Harris round 2. Kyle Kennard in round 4. And Gadsden. Come on. Solid picks. I think the big thing again is we have a team that lost composure over one play. I'm not going for flash in free agency or the draft, but solid football players. That's what I'm looking for, a mentally tough team. I'm loving these picks and what Hebert can do with them. Now we turn this thing over to Harbaugh, the guy that brought the 49ers to the Super Bowl in 2 years and Michigan to the national championship. He knows how to get this done. He'll be patrolling the sidelines like Mrs. Cleo with a bullwhip, and we're going to see a disciplined football team that does not crumple under pressure. Biggest thing. This coach is now going to go to work and put us back on track for the Super Bowl. I am officially feeling really good about this off season. Now we're going to sit back, watch, and grade out Jake's 134 good fits for the Chargers while I park my car in Harvard Yard. Listen, I hate Harvard. Stuck-up piece of crap, candy-ass girly school. Who the hell would go there? Keep up the good work, San Diego. Chargers unleashed.
Very ironic that Bob from Boston hates a lot of things from Boston. That's very weird.
Maybe he's in Orange County.
Who knows? But damn, it's always a joy when Bob from Boston comes on the show.
Johnny Dove says Jake is getting lambasted.
Like, what the fuck did I do to get so many strays? But hey, if it makes the show fun and entertaining, I'll take them all. It's fine.
Jeremy L says, make a shirt with whore-tees, GM of the Chargers.
Put like the W in quotation marks in front of the H. Whore tees. Jeez.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Whore tees, Miss Cleo patrolling the sidelines with a whip. What the fuck just happened? So good.
What do I even say after this? Mrs. Cleo with the bull.
Good Lord.
Oh gosh.
Let's try to regain our composure and get back to the show.
Okay.
Dan's about to die.
Where was I going? I gotta wipe these tears from my face. Okay. So I think Chargers fans were really, really wondering if this Chargers offensive line was gonna be okay.
I'm wondering if you're gonna be okay, Wolkenstein. Jeez.
Okay, hold on. Oh, okay. Okay, Jake, go. The Chargers offensive line.
Okay. Woohoo. Is the Chargers offensive line going to be better this season? I think Mekhi Becton goes a long way to saying that that's an improvement. You still have questions, though, as it relates to Andre James, Zion Johnson. This was a big question that came out during the middle of the rounds, and I had this conversation with Dan off the show, that everything that we had been led to believe from Joe Ortiz, Jim Harbaugh just a year ago, offensive line are looked at as tip of the spear, also looked at as weapons. So it was a little bit surprising when you see players like Miles Frazier that for whatever reason are dropping to where they were, that you felt like the Chargers could have gotten some really good value had they made Miles Frazier a mid-round selection. So I'm still a little bit perplexed as not, and this is, no declaration of Branson Taylor here in terms of where the Chargers picked him up or his skill set, but in terms of what the Chargers are talking about and the fact that Andre James is only on a 1-year deal, you still have question marks there. You still have question marks. And remember what Joe Ortiz's statements were just before the draft when he was getting asked about the offensive line, and he basically kind of, starkly said, "Is like, well, I think they did pretty good last year considering the fact what our record was in making the playoffs. And was it better than previous years? That's arguable. But there was a lot of other reasons why the Chargers made the playoffs. I don't think that people would say the offensive line was the top one for sure. So given this philosophy of this team and building that up and giving protection for Justin Herbert on top of the weapons that they already went out and got, that was just a little bit of a surprise to me, Dan. What say you? You need to take yourself off of mute after your laugh fest.
I was squealing. I had to mute myself so I can compose myself. But I think I'm back. Branson Taylor was drafted. Do I think he's the answer? It's hard to say yes. And I think that's where my one trepidation was like, I think they could have, again, there's, you got to weigh it, right? Like, would you rather have the weapons, the firepower, the depth, or the offensive line depth? A lot of people would argue offensive line, and I get it. As much as I would have loved to see this Chargers team go out and bring in a Miles Frazier, Tate Ratledge, Gray Zabel, whoever, right, to be their starting guard and it actually panned out, like that would have been amazing. But you never know. And the more, and we talked about this briefly on the last episode, Jake, but like, yes, the goal is to have a punishing offensive line. And you want to have an absolute beast, tip of the spear, monster, all the euphemisms, whatever. But when you've got the guy like Justin Herbert and a head coach like Jim Harbaugh, and you've got a Ladd McConkey, and you've got two stalwart, as Jim Harbaugh likes to mention, in Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. You bring in the road grader himself, Mekhi Becton. You bring in Andre James. There's a battle at left guard, including former first-round pick Zion Johnson, Bradley Bozeman, Jamaree Salyer maybe, Branson Taylor now. Is it perfect? No, but that is damn good, dude. Like, beggars can't be choosers. And when you have guys of that caliber, you add Trey Harris, you add Najee Harris, you add Omarion Hampton, you add Tyler Conklin, you add Orande Gadsden, you add Mike Williams, you add KeAndre Lambert-Smith. At some point, Justin Herbert and company need to lift this team up. You can't just use the excuse, oh, well, the offensive line needs to be better. Like, the offensive line can always be better. But you make do with what you have. You've got a damn good blocker in Will Dissly at tight end as well. You've got pass blockers who are really good in this running back room right now. Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton are both really good run blockers, or pass protectors, excuse me. So as much as that is an issue, and as much as that is probably the main reason why I have this Chargers getting a B+ grade, quote unquote, versus the A-A, but doesn't mean that they shouldn't be contenders for a Super Bowl this year.
100%.
They absolutely have the pieces on offense to go win a Super Bowl. Now, is the left guard maybe the weakest position? Sure. But every team has a weakest position. Just depends on how high or low it is.
Yeah, I'm not expecting perfection here. I don't want anybody to get the idea that that's what I'm looking for. So many times that Dan and I have both said, as transparent as this front office is for things that they've said, and just in given that particular scenario, especially after saying that they aren't sure that they're going to pick up Zion Johnson's fifth-year option. Normally, they try to cover their bets pretty well. And I agree with Dan. It's not perfect. There is not necessarily saying here that Frazier was the missing piece, but in terms of getting value for someone that performed that well in college and where the ranking was, I felt that the Chargers may actually have taken an opportunity to do so. Now, big time questions at left guard with Zion Johnson. I still do not buy this whole talk of Zion converting to a center position. I feel like this is the opportunity that Joe Ortiz is putting out there to say, can you challenge yourself? Can you make yourself more versatile, more valuable to this team? We'll see, but I just don't see at center Zion Johnson beating out Andre James. And I feel like the five that you see right here, if there is not another free agency move done, which there still could be between now and training camp, I feel like as of now, this is your starting five.
Yeah, and I push back a little bit on this too. Like, I've never once said, no, he's the answer, right? Like, I think he was a answer this Chargers team could have done, he being Miles Frazier or Tate Ratledge or Grace Abel, or pick any one of 6 offensive linemen that we've mocked this Chargers team over the past few months. That could help solidify. But at the same time, to his point, like, Zion Johnson was a first-round pick. That didn't work out. Talked about this last episode. Like, who knows if any of these guys are going to work out? Like, you don't know. And so you could argue the ceiling of Zion Johnson is as high as anybody's. He's got to get there. But you would like to see this Chargers team kind of work towards improving that quote-unquote weakest link. I think that's kind of the bigger point. Skinny Benny Blanco, great pod, guys. Awesome content. Thank you. Thank you so much. KLS and Branson Taylor, or Miles Frazier and Ricky White? Hindsight will always be 2020. I think if it was me right now, I maybe would probably go the latter, but I don't know. Like, KLS might end up being an absolute stud. I think he brings way more than Ricky White would in terms of ceiling. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe this year, now that he's got Andre James next to him at center, who knows? Maybe Zion Johnson's a baller, right? Maybe Mekhi Becton is so insanely big and Joe Alt is so insanely massive and awesome that whole right side is going to be just an absolute mammoth, and it doesn't matter who the other side is. Like, who knows? Who knows? A much-needed defensive tackle was a great pick. Jake, I think Jamaree Caldwell was a player that you heard a lot of folks talk about as like their guy, like fits a specific type. You know, I use the term targeted missile strikes, like I said earlier. I would say consensus board, he's probably a bit lower than people probably had him with the Chargers at 86. But if you're looking for a specific fit, we talked about Poona Ford leaving. Like, you couldn't have a better fit for the value, in my opinion.
I mean, we probably would have been talking a lot more about Jamaree Caldwell had he not been playing next to Derek Harmon. I think in terms of what your interior defensive line room was before the Chargers drafted Jamaree Caldwell, there was a huge aspect in terms of pass rushing traits that was missing. Enter Jamaree Caldwell for what you have. And he has a good mixture to where he can line up in multiple spots along the defensive line, can give you a good boost in terms of the run game, can absolutely give you the boost that you need in terms of rushing the passer from the inside. So the more you look at it and the way that this board fell, you love the Jamaree Caldwell pick.
Yeah, I do. And a lot of people are kind of poo-pooing him as if like he's not a pass rusher. Like, I think people are kind of missing the 2023 film as if it just didn't happen. Jamaree Caldwell can rush the passer too. He had 6.5 sacks, 8.5 TFLs, a block kick, and a forced fumble in 2023. 10 starts. 6.5 sacks as defensive tackle is pretty good. And then he showed last year his run defense. Now, the Chargers team is probably thinking, hey, why not both? Right? Why not both? So I think the Chargers took the board, ran with it as far as they could. There were some tough decisions. You saw they almost traded with the Eagles. And rumor has it that they were the ones that basically said, nah, we're just going to stick and pick at 22. Omarion Hampton was their day one guy that was left. So, yeah, Jeremy L says he is legit. Craig Rogers, I'll leave this for you, Jake. Did Kennard benefit from Sanders and Tonka being dominant?
Sure. But look at the situation that he's coming into now. Feel pretty good about it. Feel pretty good about the guys that he's playing next to. And essentially when he's going to come into this defense as your, call it, edge 3 and have one job to start off, hey, it's 3rd and 8. Go get the quarterback. Let's go.
Matt says, Orande Gadsden reminds me of, and I would pray, plays like Isaiah Likely. I've seen Isaiah Likely. Folks in the chat have brought up Vincent Jackson a little bit. RIP. He definitely has like that type, right? And I kind of wanted to use this time now as we kind of close out, Jake, is it's kind of project a little bit here. Like what we / maybe what fans think that they're going to expect from this new offense in 2025 and how it differs from years past. Like you look at the stable that they have. Like you start at running back, you've got the 4-headed, if you want to talk about right now, you've got Najee Harris, Omarion Hampton. At this point right now, J.K. Dobbins, and then there's a fight between Rocket Sanders and Kamani Vidal. Hassan Haskins is in the mix too. That's the running back difference. Receiver difference, there's a shit ton. We talked about all that. Tight end, there's a shit ton difference. Offensive line, shit ton difference. We know, like we've gone through it. But what are the big themes to Chargers fans, that will be different or more effective this year versus last with this crop of talent?
I look at the wide receiver moves, Dan. And whether we're talking free agent or draft picks here, it shows me a little bit that I think that Greg Roman is going to try to add a little bit of a wrinkle to his offense. Rather than it just being run dominant, which he's not going to go away from that and having the run game dictate the pace and being the first option. But I feel like he's going to take this as an opportunity, much like he did after the Denver Bronco game. Oh, no, excuse me. Yes, just before the Denver Bronco game, where weeks 1, 2, and 3, it was the J.K. Dobbins show. Raider game, Panther game, Steeler game, that's what you really relied on. Then you had a bye week. Then you came to the Denver Bronco game, and things started to tweak a little bit because everybody was asking, where is Justin Herbert in this offense? Why isn't he throwing the ball more? Now, did they completely go away from the running game? No, they didn't. But they allowed Justin Herbert to open it up a little bit more. And when you look at these moves on top of this offense and how you've stacked everything up now, I think Greg Roman, honestly, and you can totally disagree with me based on history of Greg Roman, and I will 100% say that you made a fair point. But there's something telling me that based off of these moves, when you look at it like this, that they're going to give Justin Herbert every opportunity to succeed. And if that means the running game is going to open up play action more and you're going to take some more deep shots down the middle, down the sideline, hell yeah. You got guys now who can do it. Contested catch, you got 3 of them that are great at that now. Guys who can beat in man coverage, you got a couple of them now. Guys who can pound the rock, you got a couple of them now. And so if you're talking about a situation where Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris don't have to see 8 in the box in every single down, I think you've now created an offense that can do that. And you've given Justin Herbert the weapons to do so. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a wrinkle in Greg Roman's play calling this year that's going to hugely benefit Justin Herbert.
Yeah, let's get some of the comments in the chat here who are answering the same question as well. Brad says, nobody does more play action than we do. And that play action is going to be a problem for the league. And look, you look at play action this year with the talent that they have, it kind of takes 3 things. Well, 4 if you want to include the quarterback. You need a quarterback who can get it there. You need an offensive line who can protect. A running back who can scare defenses to where they bite. And a receiver who could take the top off. I would argue you have all 4 of those things checked. You have a 2-headed monster on, let's say, 3rd and 4, 2nd and 4, Najee or Omarion. You think they're going to run on 3rd down, 2nd down and 4, 2nd and short? Sure. Play action's lethal. When you have someone who can run past the defense, i.e. KLS, someone who can go up and get it 50-50 on the sideline, fade route, go balls, posts, whatever you want. That could be Mike Williams. That could be Trey Harris. That could be, in theory, Quentin Johnson or KLS. You've got Ladd who can always get open, no matter who's covering him. Like, if you've got Tyler Conklin and Orande Gadsden will be on the seams. Will Dissly, if you want to have 12 personnel, have him out there blocking. Like, dude, that's insane. The screen game, I think, is also going to be far more potent with Orande Gadsden and with Omarion Hampton. I think you can see Orande Gadsden take some of the Will Dissly screen plays that you saw last year. That or Conklin, either one. Omarion Hampton is a beast as a pass catcher. It would be beautiful. Ladd, you're going to see absolutely slicing folks left and right. And then clearly, the running game is going to be more to what they thought they were going to have when they brought in Gus Edwards. Najee Harris has been the rock, the dependable 3.9. Sure, has it been the most effective? No, but he's been a 1,000-yard rusher every season. Chargers fans would beg for that. Omarion Hampton's got 3,100-plus yards in 2 seasons with 30 tugs. You'll take that. Second most yards after contact of any football player this year, running the ball. You think that physicality, you think that bully ball, you think that protect Justin Herbert with Mekhi Becton now, run the game out like I saw Najee Harris do, that's all going to start coming to fruition. If you're going up against this offense, Jake, like who are you going to cover? Obviously Ladd. But now you've got Trey Harris and Mike Williams on the outside who can go up and pluck it, take the readers off the helmet. You've got Najee Harris, you got Omarion Hampton that can run down your effing throat. Tyler Conklin and Orande Gadsden can both catch over anybody. Justin can run or throw. Mekhi Becton, Joe Alt, and Rashawn Slater all can absolutely maul. What do you do?
You've made it more multiple, which is an aspect that you did not have last year. And you did it in the course of 2 months. Pretty good.
Yeah. Any chance the monster of a man, Jimmy Bell Jr. at 6'9", 330 can play left guard? Would be crazy.
Be awesome.
Jeremy says, first play action of the season is going to be deep. Or sorry, first play of the season is going to be deep play action to Trey Harris. Feed families.
I would bet against it, but God, wouldn't that be sweet? Because it should be. It's probably being a handoff.
I'm going to say it's right up the middle of the Hampton.
But holy shit, would that be sweet if it was?
Yep. Johnny Dove, who I've seen a few times here talking shit on Justin Herbert, which I don't understand why, but he says 6 consecutive playoff quarters of bad film is on the resume of one Justin Herbert. I don't want to hear excuses. He also compared him previously to a glorified Ryan Leaf.
Damn.
Okay. Tupapa says 2 hammers. Yeah, this is going to be fun. We'll dissect more of the defensive side, but I think sometimes visually it's easy to see why folks are excited about this Justin Herbert-led offense in 2025. Are there questions at left guard? Sure. Are we wondering what Greg Roman we're going to get? Sure. Is Quentin going to take another step up? Who knows? But you can't question Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh going out there and understanding and completing the assignment. They gave Justin Herbert weapons, both directly and indirectly, in the pass game and the run game, in pass protection and run. Like, you got to be happy with that. Chargers had a ton of money this offseason. A ton of dudes left. Re-signed a bunch. This Chargers team is undoubtedly better than last year. This Chargers team is undoubtedly deeper than last year. And don't look now, but this Chargers team finally has some consistency in the coaching staff.
That's arguably the biggest aspect of it.
Jake, we went through a bunch today. Chargers got better. NFL draft had lots of people hyped. UDFAs we'll get to in here in a little bit on an upcoming episode. But Jake, anything else you want to get to here today? I know we went through a bunch. What are you missing?
Not missing anything, man. You know I love these live shows. It's great to interact with everybody, hear everybody's opinions, thoughts, especially just with the highs that everybody is on right now in terms of coming off the NFL draft and obviously getting ready for the season. And we're still not even in May yet. And a lot could happen between now and the end of training camp. So it'll be an exciting, if the offseason wasn't exciting already for the Chargers, it's going to be exciting over the next few months as we get through OTAs, as we get through training camp, and ultimately gear up for this upcoming season. But yeah, I love live shows like this. I appreciate everyone for coming in. Always appreciate the comments and banter, and for some reason, slanderous strays that I had to dodge out of the way from Boston today, but I'll take it. I love the discourse. So always fun.
All right, let's do a few rapid fire here before we round out the show. Tupapa says, should the Chargers had made the trade with Philly, would you have done that? Let's assume you got a haul.
We don't know specifically what it was for. And if Omarion Hampton was the target for the Chargers all along, then I would say no, because most likely to me, he doesn't drop out of the first round. And so if you dropped all the way back from 22 to 32, this is coming from me, being the trade down proponent that I am. If he was indeed the target, then I don't think that he lasts to 32. You may have had to maneuver something to jump back up. You could have had a team behind you try to jump back up into the first round. It may have just been too big of a risk. And we don't necessarily know what the haul is for, but jumping up from 32 to 22, you would have expected it to be a little sizable. You may have been able to get an extra third round pick out of that. But
Hanan says 32 and 99.
32 and 99. Okay. So there you go.
Would you have done that? I don't think I would have.
No, because if the Chargers were playing BPA the way that they showed they did, I think Omarion Hampton was the pick. In terms of going off of the best player available board, 4 defensive tackles were taken, 2 tight ends were taken, the top center in this class was taken. I think they played the board perfectly. The value for Omarion Hampton was there, and I think they got him right around where he needed to be.
Hanan says, good pod, guys. Over under 5 primetime games this year. So I'll put it at 4.5.
You know you're most likely going to get one against Kansas City.
You're going to get one against Raiders.
Yep, I was just going to say the Raiders. That's
probably
2
the Broncos
right there.
too.
God, wouldn't that be fun? You get 3 divisional
surprised
games
at
all
all.
in prime time.
Yeah.
This is a good line. Number 1.
I'm going over.
How many did they have last year? Was it 5?
It ended up being 5, I believe. I think they got flexed at the end.
Because you're playing a much tougher schedule this year. That's the other thing. So yeah, I'm going to say over.
Yeah. Last one here. Mehul Saini. Apologize if I say your name wrong. Kennard is winning rookie defensive player of the year. Mark it.
Stamp it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it. He's saying it. But I love people that call their shot. So let's go.
He says he is the steal of the draft. I mean, again, we talk value. That's what Chargers do now with Joe Ortiz at the helm. BPA, best player available. What would Jim and Joe do? What would JJD? And we saw what they do. And they go BPA, they get value, and they make a team better. This was fun. We love doing live shows, especially on a morning, on a midday. Wow, I said 2 things wrong in a row. Midweek edition, Wednesday night, hump evening. Jake, this was fun. Go hydrate. Stay hydrated, as Denzel Perriman would say.
Thank you.
Chargers fans, appreciate you guys and gals as always. If you haven't done so already, please do that thing where you hit that like and subscribe on YouTube. Helps us out a ton. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or everywhere you get your podcasts. Let us know what we can do better or worse if you want. Always love the interaction. Love these live shows. For Jake, I'm Dan. This is Chargers Unleashed, and we'll talk to you next time on Chargers Unleashed.